How you guys doing? I don't really like doing videos about, scary subjects with scary titles that are trying to be clickbait, but I feel okay about this one because I was thinking about it sort of long and hard, and I thought, in a worst case scenario, this is going to help, but if nothing happens, then you're going to be in a better financial position regardless. So I figured, why not talk about this? It was a little over a year ago. I did a video and I talked about, I think the title was, "Is a Depression Coming?" or something like that. And I was really afraid of a lot of factors in the market, and those still exist. Plus, I guess a few more. Inflation has got out of hand. Housing prices, especially in some markets in Canada, are just outrageous. There's a whole bunch of other things, plus obviously the war in Ukraine, potential for, food shortages, supply chain issues, all of these other things. Mainstream media is now talking about this as sort of a potential outcome that things could actually get bad. So I thought, well, why don't we talk about how to prepare yourself just in case? Because, things could get bad. I don't know what the fix is right now because they're still going to have to increase interest rates, and, there's no more money left to bail out things if things go bad. I'm not sure that we can print any more money to help people survive and bail out businesses if businesses start struggling. So I'm not sure what the answer is. And so for that reason, I'd say, okay, well, why don't we take care of ourselves as best we can? And I know that this is easier said than done because money is hard. We don't make enough to afford to even pay all of our expenses, month to month for some of us, and other things. And, life is expensive, food's expensive, gas is expensive, all of these things. So I just thought I'd talk about a couple things that maybe you can look at that might be, pretty helpful for almost anybody that isn't in as good of a position as they would like to be. And the first thing that you really want to look at is paying off any of that high interest debt that you have, because that's sort of your worst lagging thing that's weighing you down, not allowing you to get ahead. Credit cards are obviously the major culprit. There's also loans and other things. And you're like, yeah, well, that's absolutely great. Easy to say pay off your debt. However, that's not exactly easy to do when, life costs more and I make the same. Where am I supposed to find the money? And I completely agree. I understand that it's hard. But there are ways that you can consolidate the debt. If you own a home, I guarantee it's gone up in significant amount in value in the most recent years. So there is a chance that you could consolidate that higher interest debt into, a HELOC or a loan or a new mortgage that would reduce your monthly expenses. However, one warning is if you do that, then you can only allow yourself to ever use that as your bailout one time. Never let that become a vice where you think that you have an easy way out, because then you will get into a never-ending debt cycle, and you'll be paying things that cost you $10,000 for 25 years and never actually get out of debt. So if you can really focus on that. If you have high interest credit cards, there are ways to reduce that. If you can move a credit card onto a line of credit because you have room, do that immediately. You're going to save some money. Another thing that any single one of us can do, other than those of us that are already doing it, is, potentially pick up a little bit of extra work, or find one of those like little side hustles. It doesn't need to be a side hustle that makes you rich, but a lot of people do have a skill where they could make, an extra couple $100 a month or week, or a couple $1,000s a month, that's really going to add up and help you do that. And then one of the things, you know, and I'm going to mention it, is cleaning up the budget. But one of the things that all of us can do is, you know, shop around and find those things that are things that we pay for every single month. So you're like, okay, well, I pay for cable every month, I pay for my phone every month, I pay heating and water and, you know, all of these things. And a lot of those things, if you shop around, you know, insurance, other things, and you take a little bit of time and you say, okay, you know, my car insurance went from $1,400 a year to $2,400 in the last year, even though nothing happened. Maybe I can shop around and save some money on that. However, I don't think so, because, you know, the Alberta insurance companies have just, you know, made maximum profits by not having caps on what they can charge and, you know, declining people. But that's the thing with like Rogers, TELUS, Bell, they're always wanting new customers to sign up with these signing bonuses, where you can probably have the same or better package and save yourself $60 or $70 a month, and then use those savings to pay that off. And if you have paid all of that off, then use those savings to build up that emergency fund for the just in case. So you imagine, okay, if shit absolutely hits the fan, what are you going to do? How long are you going to be able to survive without a job if you can't find work, or you have to take a job that pays you significantly less? Well, what are you going to do? You're probably going to have to dip into that emergency fund. So that's always sort of second on the list, is build that up to, you know, 3 or 6 months of income just in case. And obviously that takes a hell of a lot longer than 3 or 6 months, because that's all you make in 6 months. It's going to take you more than that to build up that emergency fund. Next, stop buying shit and doing things that you don't need to do or aren't going to improve your life, because we all waste, and I know I do this all the time, so I'm a culprit for it all the time, spending money on things that I absolutely do not need. I mean, we are spending quite a bit of money because we've been slowly trying to chip away at improving this house to becoming like what we want it to be for our forever home. But, you know, if that needs to take a step back and we're not going to redo something right away, that's completely fine, because we're living completely fine without doing that right now. And then on that home, on that front with the home, you know, don't fall into sort of the FOMO of you're going to miss out on this real estate and you need to buy it now. I was in this position in like 2007 in Alberta where I was like, we need to get a house right now, and I was trying to find a way to like buy a place with my sister or whatever. Well, guess what? That's fine. It's actually really good that it didn't happen. We would have been stuck with this mortgage. We would have barely been able to afford. It wouldn't have been breaking even until like maybe last year, you know, so we would have been buying an asset that leveled off for the next 15 years. And we now owned it together because we had that FOMO of being like, we need to get into this now. So don't get yourself into a potential, you know, financial catastrophe because you feel like you need to do this now. You can wait. It's okay. Things, you know, will settle down. It's not always going to be this crazy. And lastly is with investing, and you know, truth be told, who the hell knows what the best solution is going to be? Nobody knows what the best way is going to be to invest if the market, you know, has a real breakdown. You don't know, and you never do know in any even normal year which industry, which sector, which country, what is going to do the best. What I can tell you is that historically, well, you understand, and Warren Buffett talks about it all the time, is that stocks are going to win over time. And if you understand sort of what you're buying a company. Well, companies' jobs are to make money. So if you're buying a company, yes, if the market, breaks and falls apart for a bit, yes, a lot of companies will go out of business. However, new companies are going to come up and replace it, which is why you're going to own a diversified basket of stocks in order to say, okay, I am diversified and I'm not just buying into, the names of today because those things are sure things, or these companies that always pay dividends because, those don't always pay dividends, especially if there's sort of a meltdown. There are staples like utilities and whatever, all of these things where, they're probably going to exist and not go out of business, but that doesn't mean that they can't get significantly hurt. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they are safe. So you're going to say, okay, long term, stocks generally are the winner. But when you go all in stocks, then you have to understand that the main reason why not everybody does this is because of the failure rate of not being able to psychologically handle a drop. And that's what you want to avoid is, the panic and the mistake. So Sean was over last week. We watched a great Oilers game, and he was talking to me, and he was like, if I was like full-blown being an advisor all the time, and that's not necessarily what his role is going to be, but he is learning a lot about it. And he said, one of the things that I've learned a lot with talking to, people in their later 50s or early 60s that have less money is that what they did was they made a major mistake as far as investing was concerned sometime a few decades or a decade earlier that really cost them long term. So my thought is just, how do you not make that mistake? And the best way to do that, I think, is to just make sure that you're fully diversified. I mean, and I'm not saying to steer away from crypto, but also to not go all in crypto, because you don't know that that's going to be the wave of the future. Maybe it has a good point in it, and maybe some cash is okay to be sitting on the sidelines even though it's losing to inflation, because maybe that gives you an opportunity to buy if you see one. And it will reduce your losses if there's a big reduction. Bonds are another thing that obviously have some risk factors associated with them right now, which generally is supposed to provide that safety net, which is really stressful because it's like, okay, well, where do I run to for safety? And I don't necessarily know. One thing that I do know for sure, and I remember this very clearly because I started in the business in 2011, and in 2008 and 2009, basically near the bottom, everybody was worried that the market was never going to return to normal, and they got really scared and they panicked and they sold out and they went to the bank and they bought 5-year GICs to make sure that their money was going to be okay. And the mistake that they made there, obviously, is that they locked in for 5 years at a very low interest rate and never got to, get any of the rebound that came, shortly after that started. And they probably never really got back into the investing game. However, had they stayed put in their, investment sort of profile that fits their risk tolerance, then they would have done fine. And so, and that is the thing, is like all in on one thing, exceptionally dangerous. Borrowing too much that you can't afford if something goes wrong, exceptionally dangerous. Scary to hold stuff that's losing, yes, but exceptionally dangerous, absolutely not. So figure out, in your mind, what would you do if something bad happens? How would you react? What are you going to do? Are you going to, are you going to fire your advisor because the market went down and say, this guy's getting me crappy returns, and going to somebody that says that they can do better? Well, none of us know the answer to that. And if somebody's saying they're going to do better, or you're jumping ship because something got better returns, last year, then generally speaking, it actually flips. So you say, okay, well, that got better returns, so I'm going to go to that, but you already missed those returns and you missed the rebound from staying put. So it's sort of an interesting thing where human emotion comes into the investing part of it more than anything. So kind of learn what you're investing in. Have a really good diversified portfolio. It's always been sort of the general rule. And then that's why they do that risk tolerance thing. That's why they ask the questions, and that's why it comes up as it comes up. And most people end up somewhere sort of in that balanced range, which I think is a fair mix for the majority of people, not because it's going to make you the wealthiest, but because it's going to cause you, the least amount of emotional damage that could provide sort of a fail rate that's pretty high. So those are my thoughts. I guess went way longer. I literally thought I was going to be able to do this video within 5 minutes. It's now running to 16 minutes. So I'll let you go. Hopefully everyone's doing really well. If you made it to the end, please like and subscribe. And we'll see you soon with more in-depth planning videos that I've previously filmed that are being edited. So thanks very much. We'll chat soon.